Alcohol. Humans have enjoyed this substance in beverages for thousands of years. The oldest historic discovery related to the fermentation of honey is dated to 7000 BC in China. This alcoholic drink often played a role in social gatherings. Vikings would come together in so-called mead halls and have large feasts. It was generally the place where the king connected with his people. Today, alcoholic drinks are still a big part of many cultures. Nowadays, we usually buy everything off the shelf, but maybe you would be interested in making your own alcoholic beverage, but you don't know where to start? Today, I'll show you a basic way to brew mead, one of the easiest things to brew. There are many ways to brew mead and a lot of opinions about. I will keep it pretty basic and let you try out some variations yourself. First, we're going to look at the ingredients needed to brew 3 liters of mead. You'll need 1 kilogram of honey. It doesn't have to be the best for your first batch. Half a liter of apple juice, 1 tablespoon of yeast. I'm going to use normal baking yeast. The best fermenting yeast would be the one used for wine. 2 liters of normal water. The equipment you'll need is a cooking pot, a carboy, in my case I use a 5-liter carboy, and an airlock that fits on top of the carboy, a funnel, a temperature gauge, and some empty bottles to fill with the finished mead. Now we have all we need, but before we can start, we need to clean and sterilize our equipment. I will use boiling water to get rid of the bacteria. To do this, we need to go to the kitchen. You can decide yourself how well you sterilize everything. Mead has been around much longer than sterilization has, so don't get caught up in cleaning everything like in a hospital. Having cleaned all our equipment, we can start making the must, which is what mead is called before it's fermented. First, we put the honey and the water in the pot and heat it up. This way, the honey will dissolve in the water. Make sure the temperature doesn't go higher than 40 degrees Celsius. For that, we'll use our thermometer. Next, we'll add the apple juice. This will help the yeast grow and do its job. Now we'll fill the mixture into the carboy and let it cool down to about 20 degrees Celsius. If you're a bit impatient like me, you can put the carboy in cold water to help cool everything down. As soon as everything is cool enough, we'll add the yeast and shake the carboy to spread out the yeast. The only thing left to do now is to put the airlock on top and let the carboy sit somewhere protected from direct sunlight at room temperature. I'll leave it in a corner in my dining room. You'll need to fill the airlock with a bit of water. This way, it lets the CO2 escape from the carboy but prevents anything from contaminating the must. Once our must is prepared, it's the yeast's turn to work. It will do something called ethanol fermentation. That's the process that produces the alcohol. Like all living organisms, yeast needs cellular energy to live. The human body uses oxygen to turn glucose into usable energy. What's special about yeast is that it performs this conversion in the absence of oxygen. So basically, the yeast eats the sugar and turns that into energy with ethanol and CO2 as byproducts. After a day or two, you should see bubbles going out of the airlock. That's the CO2 escaping the container. If that is not the case, something is wrong with the yeast. You can try and add more yeast or some yeast nutrients. Now we leave it for a few weeks and let the yeast do its thing. You can shake the carboy every now and then to reinitiate the fermentation process. But after a few days, you should just leave it alone. I usually check the temperature every now and then to make sure the conditions are okay. If it's too cold, the yeast doesn't work as fast. But if it's too warm, the yeast will die. Optimal temperature is between 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. After 2 to 4 weeks, you should be able to see that the frequency of the bubbles in the airlock decreases. The liquid is probably still very cloudy, but don't worry, the mead is not quite finished yet. If you have enough space in your fridge, you can put the whole carboy in the fridge and let the particles settle on the carboy floor. After a week, you should be able to fill the bottles with the finished mead. Alternatively, you can already fill the bottles beforehand, but you will probably have some sediment on the bottle floors. So you see, it's really not very complicated to brew mead. So give it a shot. Try some variations and add maybe some fruits. Let me know how it goes.